What is up, guys, and welcome back to SP Vids. I hope you all had a great 404 day. It was awesome not to be included by Roland in anything for another year in a row. So yeah, they've started putting tutorials on their website now, which are things I've covered literally years ago. So yeah, this channel now is just such a huge resource for learning how to use the SP devices, guys. And I just want to say a huge thank you to you and, well, I mean, all of us really, just for making this a really good community, this YouTube channel. And I think we've all inspired and helped people along the way to make beats with the SP404 devices. So huge thanks to you all for that. But yeah, I don't want to get too wrapped up in all the feelings that I've got around that, really. Let's move on to the content of this video, which I want to talk about the Lo-Fi button, which appears throughout the series. So I'm going to be swapping the devices as we go along, and I'm going to start with the 202. So the first unit from Boss, which is a company owned by Roland anyway, and this is kind of renowned for its lo-fi qualities, and I mean that by the true sense of the word, as in low fidelity, not as in the genre. And we've been over this before on the channel, but I just wanted to cover it again quickly for this unit in particular, is the different sample rates that you get with this box. And it's one of the best features, I'd say. Apart from the pitch shifter, I would say this is probably the best feature, the fact that you can sample in 4 different rates. So down the left hand side we've got Hi-Fi Standard, Lo-Fi 1, Lo-Fi 2. And what I'm going to do is I'll just quickly sample in a bit of a drum loop to show you guys what the lo-fi settings sound like. I know I've done this before, so I don't want to go through the whole process again, but I'll just sample them in with Lo-Fi 1 so you can get an idea of what this unit sounds like when you sample at that particular quality. So I've got a little drum loop that I created. Let's see if this comes through. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to hit record and I'm going to do standard Lo-Fi 1, so you just keep pressing this button to cycle through them, and it's saying pad 5 is available. There must be other stuff on this, so I'm going to hit record. Okay, so let's hear what that sounds like. It'll be processed once I play this on pad 5. So there you go, you can see there the difference is literally night and day. It adds this completely crazy character to it. Apologies if there's any like electric noise on that. I really struggle with the recording setup and reducing that noise, so I tried the best I can, but you might hear some additional noise on there. But yeah, you get this really crunchy sound from it, and when you actually sample in individual drum sounds at these quality settings, you can get some really nice effects, particularly on snares, I find. So that's one way that you can utilize it. On samples, I tend never to really go below standard, really, because it just loses too much of the kind of frequency range when you use it on a sample, so you have to be really careful with that. Unless you're going to go with a big sub sound underneath the mix, I tend to stay around hi-fi and standard, just to keep that thickness in the sample and the warmth. So yeah, that's the 202, and now what I'll do is move on to the 303. Okay guys, so I had to come back and re-record this part. Thank you all for your comments on the previous upload of this. I did get something slightly wrong with this part, so I'm going to do this part for the 303 again here now and re-upload the video. But on the 303, we've got the lo-fi button again, which is awesome, but it's got 2 settings on this one, so this is what I missed out. I thought this was just a toggle off and on, but actually, in fact, if you look closely above, it says long mode and lo-fi mode, so you actually get 2 sample modes with this particular button. And then obviously you've just got the standard sampling mode as well. So in total on the 303, you get 3 sample modes, which is quite nice. So what I'm going to do is sample in that drum loop again, and I'll do both the modes for you. We've got plenty of pads available here, and I'm going to sample this one onto 1 first, and we'll choose long for the first one. Okay, so that is long, and I'll go straight ahead and do lo-fi as well. So let's go on to pad 2, and you press that twice so that the button's flashing. That's what I didn't do properly last time, so let's go ahead and get the lo-fi version of this drum loop sampled in as well. Okay, so that is both those sampled in, and let's hear what the difference is between those two. So that's long, which there isn't really that much of a noticeable difference between that and the standard recording mode. And let's move over to pad 2 and listen to the lo-fi version. Okay, that sounds a lot more like what I was expecting when I first was trying this and accidentally just used the long setting. So we do get a bit of a harsh setting on that, and what we can do is use the isolator to just kind of take those highs off if we want to. So we've got these sampled in, and because they're recorded in at that rate now, we can use MFX over the top. So if we want to take off some of that harshness, we can just use the isolator. There we go, like that. So you can just use that isolator to take off those bits which you don't really like the sound of. Personally, I think if you use this correctly, you don't really need to be doing any more MFX stuff to it. Particularly on the drums, I think if you're sampling individually and using this setting, you can get some really nice crunchy sounds out of it. So they're the two different sample modes on the SP303 if you use the long and lo-fi button. So I'll just give you one more listen to those again. I have to say, I really like the sound of the long mode on that. I think it just takes off a little bit of the of the noisiness that lo-fi gives, but it's still making enough of a difference to the sample to just about notice. So it's a nice subtle effect. I quite like the sound of that. The lo-fi mode, again, I think that is very comparable to the versions on the 202. If you use that in the right places, that can be really useful as well, especially on snares and hi-hats and drum sounds in particular. I think that would be really effective. Maybe not so much on samples, but go ahead and experiment and see what you guys can come up with that setting if you own the 303. Okay, so here we are on the 404 SX. I think this is the unit that, you know, really kicked off the popularity of this series. I think it went into overdrive once this thing was released. And yet again, we do have the lo-fi button, so hopefully you can see that lit up there. But the big change with the SX is that it's not a permanent feature of the sample. You can actually just toggle it on and toggle it off on anything that you want. So I'll try and find a sample on my unit. Okay, so I've got some really nice chops here lined up. Just 3 of them there, but they've got a really nice sort of distinctive sound to those. And the great thing is about the SX that you can just toggle on the lo-fi settings. So they've obviously made some sort of internal effect which just adds that kind of ring and grit to it. And again, the beauty of this as well is you can also have an MFX on it as well. So if I've got pad 1 with lo-fi and then I can put on the isolator as well. And if we don't like the sound that it gives it just straight out the box, we can just take a little bit of the high off. That's compared to the other pad. So you can see the huge difference it's added. It's made it a lot more sort of metallic sounding, and it's roughened it up a lot. It does actually do quite a good job of giving it that sort of downsampled sound. But yeah, you do have to use it cautiously. And like I was saying, you can just toggle this off as well. So let's just take that off, take the isolator off, and we're back to how we were again. So I do think that is incredibly useful that you can just do that. I mean, it's probably not as, it's not as authentic as actually sampling in at a downsampled rate, but because it's giving you the option to turn it off and on, and it's only probably slightly out in terms of the sound, you can't completely recreate that downsampled sound, but it does a very, very good job. I mean, it's hardly even a compromise really, that you get a very close sound to what it should sound like, and you can turn it off and on every sample. The reason they ditched that is basically Roland said, well, these have got a lot more storage on them now, you don't need to sample in at a lower sample rate, but they still wanted that kind of authentic option of being able to down sample samples. So yeah, that's why it's an option like that now. And yeah, to be fair, I think on the SX they've done a really good job, and on the A it will be the same as well. This is also really good for using on kicks, and if you just put the lo-fi button on the kick, that sort of sound you will notice a lot in very stripped down lo-fi beats that are made usually with just the SX. You hear that kick with this sort of extra little noise on the top of it, and I do really, really like that noise. I think when it hits through the mix with that little bit of extra sort of those little extra artifacts on the top of them. It adds a really nice, unique sound to it. And again, you can just experiment with it off or on as well, and use isolator if you wanted to. So there we go, guys. I think that's all I wanted to cover in the video, really. It was just the sort of journey of the lo-fi settings throughout the range of the SPs. I know there's other SP devices, but I don't have them all, so I can't show you all of them. So I'm not sure. The only other one that I do have is the 555, but because of the size of it, I have to adjust my camera and everything to get it in the shot, so I didn't want to go and get that one in. That does have a lo-fi button, but I'm actually not sure on the functionality of that one, so maybe I could cover that in a separate video. So yeah, that's it really, the journey of the lo-fi button, going from the 202 where you could choose your sample rate to the 303 where it's a permanent feature but it adds quite a nice character to your samples, and then on the 404 you can actually toggle whether you want that sound on. It's just an emulator in a way. So go and experiment with that and see what sounds you can come up with. I really like using it on drum sounds particularly, and like I mentioned, if you combine it with resampling and use other effects, you can get some really cool sounds out of this unit. Thanks for watching, guys. If you're not a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button. I know that about 65% of you aren't subscribed, so if you like this kind of content, I do weekly uploads, please hit that subscribe button, and if you like the content, hit the thumbs up as well. Leave a comment below, do you use the lo-fi buttons when you're making beats? I'd love to hear what your guys' processes are with regards to that, and maybe this will give you some inspiration. Keep making beats, guys. I'll be back with more content soon. Peace!